Okay. It took me a while to edit out that fire alarm yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay, so no homework, yay. All right, Atomic Habits. Next chapter? Yeah, we're good. Oh, I was gonna ask you guys, should we do this? I don't mind doing this every day, even when we don't have Jewish ethics. I think it's just good to, like, for us, make Teshuvah, certainly, you know?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Okay. All right, so today we actually get into some practical techniques, okay? So remember, this is his summary, and this is in the section title is the first law of behavior change is make it obvious, okay? It was make it,
Oh, right.
yeah,
Make
well,
it obvious, make it annoying.
yeah, wait, make it obvious, I'm trying to remember them now.
Make it attractive.
Right, make it obvious.
Annoying, then make it attractive.
Did someone write them down?
I was trying to, but I
Make it
forgot.
satisfying.
Yeah.
Craving. Oh no.
Yeah, you know, it corresponds with that. So cue, craving, response, and satisfaction, right? Or
No. Or no. No, satisfaction.
should we just look at?
My phone now.
Oh no, it's okay. I could just look at the PowerPoint from the previous day. All right, let's see it. It was. Wait, where's the? Here we go. Make it obvious, make it attractive, not annoying. The annoying is for if you're breaking a habit, right? Yeah. Make it easy and make it satisfying. Yeah. Okay, good. So this, and I mentioned like this next part of the book goes through sets of techniques for each of these four. So this is starting off with the make it obvious. Close that, and then let's go here. Okay, so he says, with enough practice, your brain will pick up on the cues that predict certain outcomes without consciously thinking about it. Once our habits become automatic, we stop paying attention to what we're doing. The process of behavior change always starts with awareness. You need to be aware of your habits before you can change them. So that I wanted to talk about for 1 second here, right? So do you remember the example that we used yesterday of something that we don't even call a habit? The light switch, right? So walking into a dark room and turning on the light, you don't identify it as a habit. Now, there's no consequence if you don't identify it as a habit because it's not a harmful action, right? But think of all the things that are in your life that you just don't call habits, but they are. So how can you expect to change them if you don't identify it as a habit? Okay. Now, this next part is the main thing we're going to focus on today, okay? Pointing and calling is a technique he uses, okay? Pointing and calling raises your level of awareness from a non-conscious habit to a more conscious level by verbalizing your actions. So this is his summary, but I wanted to actually read to you the full part of the chapter where he talks about this. Okay, so let's do what we do when we read English stuff and go around, and if you want to read, you read. If you want to skip, you skip. Okay, skip. Leah, go ahead.
The Japanese railway system is regarded as one of the best in the world. If you ever find yourself riding a train in Tokyo, you notice that the conductors have a particular habit.
A peculiar habit.
Peculiar.
Yeah.
As each operator runs the train, they proceed through the ritual of pointing at different objects and calling out commands. When the train approaches a signal, the operator will point at it and say, "Signal is green." As the train pulls into and out of each station, the operator will point at the speedometer and call out the exact speed. When it's time to leave, the operator will point at the timeable and state
Timetable.
the timetable.
That's good.
And state the time. On the platform, the employees are performing similar actions. Before each train departs, staff members will point along the edge of the platform and declare, "All clear." Every detail is identified, pointed at, and named aloud. So
that's the technique. Point and call. Okay. Now you might think to yourself, what does that do? Okay, but here are the statistics. Go ahead, Ayala.
This process, known as pointing and calling, is a safety system designed to reduce mistakes. It seems silly, but it works incredibly well. Pointing and calling reduces.
So just pause and consider that. 85% reduction in errors, 30% reduction in actual accidents. And as you can imagine, when you're like on a train system, accidents are really bad, right? Yeah, good. Go ahead.
The MTA subway system in New York City adopted a modified version that is point only. And within 2 years of implementation, incidents of incorrectly
birthed, I don't know exactly what that means.
Subways fell 57%.
Do you guys ever notice, I don't know how often you take the train, but you'll notice sometimes the conductor will point. So next time you see a conductor, notice it. It's actually like they actually implemented the system. It's actually like
on a train.
On a train, yeah.
When they go like this.
Yeah.
We're in the car.
So I don't know why they didn't. I don't know why they didn't switch to pointing and calling, but you see, even this, it fell 57%. Okay, errors or birth subways, whatever that is. Okay, go ahead.
Pointing and calling is so effective because it raises the level of awareness from a non-conscious habit to a more conscious level. Because the train operators must use their eyes, hands, mouth, and ears, they are more likely to notice problems before something goes wrong.
Okay, so this is what he's going to now adapt to for your habits. Okay.
Stories that like.
Yeah, it's very, very effective, especially because they're true stories. And when he backs up with like statistics like this, then you believe it more. Yeah. So what do you think he's going to suggest to do to apply this to habits? Yeah. Okay, good. So here he goes on. Next reader. Yeah, go ahead.
The more automatic behavior becomes, the less likely we are to consciously think about it. And when we've done something 1,000 times before, we begin to overlook things. We assume the next time will be just like the last. We're so used to doing what we've always done, we don't stop to question whether it's the right thing to do at all. Many of our failures in performance are largely attributed to a lack of self-awareness. One of our greatest challenges in changing habits is maintaining awareness of what we're actually doing. This helps explain why the consequences of bad habits can sneak up on us. We need a point and call system for personal life.
So now he's switching to consequences. He's saying that the consequences of bad habits sneak up onto you. Sneak up on you because you don't identify the habit that leads to the consequence. And this is a system for making it as conscious as possible, so it's no longer automatic. Okay, so this is like, when he said habit is something that happens automatically. When you are trying to create good habits, you have to create the automatic nature of it. But when you have a bad habit, you have to de-automatize it, like make it not automatic. And that's by dissecting it and pointing and calling it. Okay, so he's going to now give particular examples. Okay, go ahead.
You have to make your habit to call it out. Otherwise, you forget to call it out also.
Yes, that's also true, right? And unfortunately, there's no way to pointing and calling, right? There has to start somewhere. Yeah, Eliana, go ahead.
Changing bad habits, be on the lookout for them. If you feel like you need extra help, then you can try pointing and calling in your own mind. Say out loud the action that you were thinking of taking and what the outcome will be. If you want to cut back on your junk food habit, but notice yourself grabbing another cake, say out loud, I'm about to eat this cookie, but I don't need it. Eating it will cause me to gain weight and hurt my health.
Interesting, you said cake instead of cookie. yeah, that's fine. Yeah, sorry, it's a little small. Okay, so that's a perfect example, right? So you grab for the extra food. If you just point and call, that will start making the habit noticeable, which will then create the basis for you being able to change it. And then he has one more benefit of this. Go ahead, Eliana.
Hearing your bad habits spoken out loud makes the consequences seem more real. It adds weight to the action rather than telling yourself mindlessly.
Then letting yourself mindlessly. Oh, sorry, that's okay. I can read it. It adds weight to the action rather than letting yourself mindlessly slip into an old routine. This approach is useful even when you're simply trying to remember a task on your to-do list. Just saying out loud, tomorrow I need to go to the post office after lunch, increases the odds that you'll actually do it. You're getting yourself to acknowledge the need for action, and that can make all the difference. Okay, and that's the theory. Okay, that's the technique. So now we need volunteers. Okay, anyone want to? I'm going to experiment with this this week. Okay, I'll tell you how I'm going to experiment with it. So I'm very good when it comes to brushing my teeth, but I am not good when it comes to flossing. Okay, and I've tried over and over and over again to get into the habit of flossing. Okay, so what I'm gonna try to do, and I have to think about what formulation I want to use, is there's another technique that he's going to talk about later on called habit pairing or habit stacking, where you take something that you already do and then you link it to a habit that you want to try to do. So flossing kind of lends itself to that because I already brush my teeth. So if I can link the habit of flossing into that, then that'll work. And I think if I make the flossing come before the teeth brushing instead of afterwards, yeah, right. So then, because I know I'm going to brush my teeth, there's no way I'm ever going to skip brushing my teeth. So if I make the flossing an obstacle to get to brush my teeth, then maybe it'll work. And then what I want to try to do is just, what would be a way to point and call and apply that to flossing?
When you're going to go brush your teeth.
So the positive way to say it would just be I need to floss and just saying it, maybe pointing at the floss, right?
After, if you didn't, you can be like, I didn't floss.
Right. The times when I don't floss, if I just say I didn't floss and this is making me more likely to develop gum health issues in the future, something like that can make the consequence more real. Okay. So I'm going to try this. And then another habit I want to try is I'm pretty good at hydrating in general, but masks have definitely made things more difficult. You know, like in childhood, I was always drinking water.
But like, it's like awkward to like keep drinking water.
Yeah, I know, right. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get into a habit of hydrating more at times when I don't wear masks. So for example, I've been trying to drink 1 or 2 large glasses of water when I first wake up, like right when I wake up, and I fail I fail a lot. Like I'll drink coffee and that's fine, but like I'll fill up a cup of water and I'll have my coffee and I'll take a sip of the water and I'll drink all my coffee and then just leave the water, you know? So I want to try, because this also involves a physical object, then like if I want to try pointing to the water and saying, I'm going to drink the water and stay hydrated, you know? And I'm going to just see if that works.
Or don't make the coffee yet.
Yes, that would be the real smart way to do it. Here's the problem though. The problem is I have a timed coffee maker. So like so it automatically makes the coffee. So when I wake up in the morning, I smell the coffee, you know?
What do you put your coffee into?
What do you have?
A mug. So maybe I could.
What if you start putting your water
In the same mug? That is a perfect solution, Leah. That is a perfect solution, right? Then I literally can't put,
And you'll like think you're about to drink your coffee.
Yeah, okay, that's the solution. Okay, good.
You're gonna be mad at yourself.
You're gonna be like, when you drink it, you're gonna be like, oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's perfect, right? That's making it, can you read the thing again? Make it obvious, make it.
Attractive, easy, satisfying.
Right, so make it easy. So this is making a bad habit difficult. By filling up the mug with water, I'm making it difficult to not drink the water. Yeah.
And you're making it attractive because you're attracted to your coffee mug.
That's true. That is also true, right? I like drinking whatever's supposed to be in this thing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else want to point and call at an example that they're going to try to do this on that they can think of right now? You don't have to, but like, just so we can hold each other accountable.
No, I would do my nails, but I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, nails might be another problem. And remember, just like just like the nails are. Yeah. Until you bite them. Yeah. I was gonna say though that just like when I taught you guys study skills, I said that not every technique works for every situation. I think that's what we're gonna have to think about here. That certain problems require different situations or different solutions. Anyone have an example that they want to try this on?
Maybe. I think I want to do it with my clothing. I always like take out clothes to try it in the morning,
Yeah.
and then I just don't put them back, and they just sit in a pile.
Okay, so how are you gonna do it? How are you gonna
So
use point
every
and call?
time, or either when I see the pile, I'm gonna say I didn't put my clothing away, and this is bad because it makes
Okay,
me
good.
feel weird.
Good.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
fold my laundry.
Yeah.
And then my clothing gets all wrinkled, and I don't like it.
Okay, good. And then you could also do it in the positive way of I'm going to put away my clothing so it doesn't get wrinkled,
Yeah.
you know, and that'll make it more satisfying. I have a feeling that sometimes framing it in the negative will be more motivating, and sometimes framing it in the positive will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like for example, like the gum health issue. I feel like there's no way to feel that you have gum health, but you don't want to feel like you have gum disease, you know. So there, the negative is more appropriate. Yeah.
I don't know. You want to feel like you have nice teeth.
Yeah.
I'm seeing them anyway with these masks.
Yeah, and but the truth is like I feel like the connection between flossing and nice teeth is not so clear. Like maybe at an abstract level, I feel like that's too abstract for me.
I have one.
Yeah?
Talking about teeth, but I really don't have any motivation to really do it, but maybe I will now. Every time I open my medicine cabinet, I see the whitening strips that I bought like over a year ago.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm going to do them tonight or tomorrow night or whatever, and I never do it because every
Ah.
time I'm just like, okay, I'm already done.
Okay, I have a feeling that the next chapter, I think it's in the next chapter, will be a technique that you could use for that.
Great, so I don't have to start.
That's the spirit.
Remember how you would like do it so you could get it over it? Now I know how you think.
Yeah.
But do it tomorrow.
Okay, so
At least like a closeted procrastinator.
so we were on page 147, I think is where the halachos were. So let's quickly review the Teshuvah Gemara halacha, but I want to actually do the definition of Teshuvah today and talk about that. What?
I thought someone else's. Mine, I put the bookmark in the place I love mine. I'm keeping mine forever.
Oh, thank you, Leah.
Okay. This is another habit shortcut, by the way, of setting up your situation so that you have minimal effort the next time.
Every night I pick out my outfits. So
Yeah.
I wake up 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's great. Yep.
You know when you like thank your past self, you're like, thank you yesterday.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do is setting my bed so I don't have to go to the other.
I just was perplexed because I've never heard the phrase "setting my bed." Yeah. You should have just continued very confidently, and then we wouldn't have questioned you. Yeah. Okay. So again, so what is Teshuvah Gemura? That's when you encounter the thing that you sinned with, and it's possible for you to do it again, but you don't because of Teshuvah, not because of fear, not because of weakness of ability. We didn't really comment on fear. I think we used the example of social fear, but what other kind of fear might stop you from doing the sin again? Fear of punishment, right? So that's a biggie. And again, we're not shaming fear of punishment. Obviously, fear of punishment is if it stops you from doing the avera, so then like that's great, but it's not the highest level, right? Okay. For example, if a person had prohibited intercourse with a woman and at a later time he became secluded with her and he still loved her and had the physical capacity to transgress, and he was in the same city in which he sinned, but he separated himself and didn't sin, then he's a Baal Teshuvah Gemura. That's what Shlomo says, remember your creator in the days of your youth. Did anyone have any more thoughts on the question of why he calls Teshuvah remembering your creator? Because I had another thought this morning that I wanted to share, but I'll give you the opportunity first.
Wait, why I thought it was Teshuvah?
Sorry, why it is a reference to Teshuvah. Teshuvah is remembering your creator, and that's what we talked about yesterday. And we said it's all Teshuvah, it's not just Teshuvah Gemura.
You don't remember to be like him and to go in his ways?
Did we say that? I don't remember.
Maybe I was just thinking that.
It could be that you're thinking that. That's not a bad idea. So first, I think we could break it into two things. Number one, if remembering your creator is tshuva, so then how does that frame sin? Forgetting your creator. So that's, I think.
It is what we do, and like why we say
Exactly right. Is the yeah. But I'm trying to think of the pasuk that you're thinking of.
When you say
But yeah. V'shachachta es Hashem Elokach, and you'll forget your God. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought you were quoting the Birkas Hamazon where we don't say that in the Birkas. Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Right, so it's forgetting God, right? But then this gets down to a question which I told Emily I would address, okay, which is, and this is maybe a side point, but hopefully we'll not get too far off track. Emily asked the question of, is sinning, can you define sinning as going against reality? I know it's like a weighty question there.
Yeah, isn't that how you guys define it as when your mom asked?
Well, we weren't talking about sinning. We were talking about like what we should, what our morals are.
No, you said that sinning is going against reality.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, it's
I didn't get that.
It's choosing to use your intellect. Yeah.
So, yeah, as in you agree? Because Emily's saying she doesn't get that. And she seemed to hear you guys talking about it as if you knew what you were talking about. So I'm curious as to what.
I don't know what I was thinking then.
Yeah, you can think about it fresh. Yeah.
In a way, you are going against reality because you're choosing your intellect over your animalistic. No, but your animalistic part is reality.
Yeah, right?
So maybe not. No. Or
Maybe it's like a Mishle type of thing where like in reality it'll be more beneficial in the long run.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, good. All right. So let me use an analogy and then we'll connect it back to that question here. Is okay. The purpose of a diet is to have a real effect on your body. Okay, let's say like health, right? Okay. So you keep to the rules of the diet so that your body functions in a better way, okay? If you violate the diet, then you are doing two things. Number one is you're violating a system. So in terms of the system, in terms of the laws of the diet, I know it's not really laws, but in terms of the rules of the diet, you're violating something. Then that violation has an effect on the reality of your body. Like let's say you're not supposed to eat like too much sugar, right? If you eat too much sugar, that is going to throw your body out of whack in a certain way. Like it's going to make your blood sugar, spike or whatever the thing is, So that's the way I would view halacha. Okay. Halacha is a system of laws, but it's designed to have an actual effect on yourself, your body, your emotions, and your mind. So when you violate halacha, you are violating a rule, but that violation will impact the way that you actually function. So let's say, for example, if you speak Lashon Hara, so you're violating the law, then that's also going to change the way you relate to other people. It's going to change the way you relate to Hashem. It's going to change the way you relate to speech, and it's all going to have a detrimental impact. So I think, does that make sense? So I think what this does is it's saying, remember your creator, because creator references Hashem not as the lawgiver, but as the source of reality. That God designed the world in a certain way and designed you in a certain way and gave you these laws as a way to live according to the way that you were designed. And when you violate halacha, it's not just that you're violating a rule, but that violation has an impact on the way that you were created. Like the laws were created, the laws were given and designed to support what kind of creature you are and to facilitate healthy development and perfection and development of yourself. So when you violate the law, you're deviating from the way that God created you to live. So I think that's what saying remember your creator brings to mind, is that your goal is not to just keep all the rules. Your goal is to keep the rules because that's actually good for you as a creation.
You're saying that reality is like the laws and the Torah and the rules.
So what I'm saying is that the reality is what God created, and the laws of the Torah are designed to help you have the best reality, by following them.
So how is it living around with reality, living in line with your best?
With your design, with the way that you were designed. Yeah. So like an analogy here is like if a plant was designed by Hashem to thrive off of water and sunlight and soil, right? So if you dump gasoline into onto a plant, so that is not in line with reality in the sense that gasoline is not contributing to the plant's growth based on its design. Whereas if you water it, that is in line with reality because that's one of the needs that the plant was designed with. So too with a human being, if you learn Torah, let's say, so that's in line with reality because you were designed with a Tzelem Elokim that can think and can pursue knowledge and can use knowledge. So it's in line with your design. But if instead of like having a diet of knowledge, you have a diet of like fantasy, that takes you away from your design because it makes you live in a world of things that are false instead of a world of things that are true. Okay? No, I think it's just an elaboration, and I think Emily's question just sharpened it. Is sinning like not being in line with reality? And I think this just makes it a little bit clearer. Yeah.
Does that imply that it's bad? So things aren't true.
Not.
People are just killing.
Yeah. So let's put it this way. There's a difference between like when you space out and you like imagine yourself on vacation versus Hitler, who imagines that he could create a 1,000-year government of Aryan supremacy. Like those are both technically fantasies, but one of them is a fantasy that doesn't really harm anything. It's just like an idle fantasy, IDLE, not IDOL. And the other one's like an idol fantasy where you're like making yourself into a god, and like imagining that you're gonna like have power that is just completely out. It also hurts him though. How does it hurt him?
Because he's thinking that he can actually do that and he's striving
He'll never
doing
get to
everything in his life to do
Exactly.
that.
And what's gonna happen when he tries to live out that fantasy?
It's not gonna fail.
He's gonna fail. Right, exactly. And that's what happened, is he overreached his capabilities and ended up like maneuvering himself into a position where he was vulnerable to defeat, and then he got defeated, right? And then we know what happened later. Yeah.
Isn't
So
that the same as the vacation fantasy in a way now? Because vacation, like you're imagining it's so great, and then like when you actually do it, it's actually not going to be.
So I would say qualitatively it's the same thing because both are fantasies, but quantitatively there's a huge difference in terms of how much the fantasy changes the way that you live. Hitler's fantasy completely overtook the way he lived and his country and the world. The whole world got swept up in that delusion. And the vacation fantasy, like at worst, what's going to happen is it'll cause you to make plans for the vacation and you think that's going to make you totally happy, get there and it's not as good as the fantasy. So like in the grand scheme of things, the harm was not like tremendous,
They're both bad.
They are both bad in the sense of if you could eliminate them and have imaginations which were in line with what was actually real, that would be the best. Yeah. But I would say don't work on trying to like stop yourself from daydreaming, or anything like that. Or even forget daydream. Forget even, we talked about this in Koheles, that let's say like your life ambitions, like a lot of those, you don't know how much they're reality and how much they're fantasy. So you do have to be on guard against like planning your life around something that might not actually come true. So you have to have a healthy caution and like try to constantly be sifting between what's real and what's fantasy. Yeah.
I feel like it's okay to have fantasies to the point where you don't root them in reality. Like you don't believe that they're necessarily going to come. Like you don't make it a part of your life.
Yeah, like let's say for example, there's a difference between, this is a bad example, there's a difference between a kid who has an imaginary friend and knows it's imaginary, and a person who has a psychotic disorder where they're actually imagining
Right.
that there are real people there and like interacting with them as though they're real. You know, in other words, just identifying it, pointing and calling, this is a fantasy, you know,
Right.
can prevent it from like encroaching on the reality and on your decision making. Yeah. Did I answer your question, Elisheva, or not?
I think so.
I mean, it's a big question, but like what?
Before, but I don't get how that relates to
So this is a good question. So how does it relate to tshuva? Well, yeah, how does it relate to tshuva? Or really, how does it relate to hate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we think about it? Let's think about that. That's a really, really fruitful question. Yeah.
So you're dwelling in the area of there, like you're not acknowledging reality. So you're not remembering your creator and that you are a creation
Yeah.
How
who
does
has
that benefit
limits, and because you're not realizing that you have limits and you're not going to be able to aid you tshuva because not being realistic,
What do you need to do?
so that you could become the best version of yourself.
Why would you want to do that? It's easier to lie about everything.
Right. This is why I think Mishlei is so important, because Mishlei gives you an answer to that, which is that if you, violate, I mean, I know Mishlei is not talking in halacha specifically, but when you make a foolish or an evil decision, then ultimately it's going to bring you pain, you know, and that's something that you don't want. And I think that's a good starting point for tshuva. Obviously, the halachic system goes beyond that. Like you can give an explanation like that for lashon hara. It's much harder to give an explanation like that for kashrus, you know, or for like Shabbos, you know. But I think the line of thinking, though, is that Leah is suggesting is true of God gave the mitzvos because they are good for us and because they, as a system, give us the happiest possible life. That's not why we keep them, but that is why he gave them. You know, we keep them because they're commanded, you know. But the reason why he gave them is to try to provide us with the best possible life in the sense of like the happiest possible life, right? And when we deviate from that, we're harming ourselves. Maybe sometimes in the short run, sometimes in the long run, and sometimes like societally, maybe like your one violation might not bring about direct harm to you, but you're creating a society in which the net result will be a life of more pain or consequence, you know. But the devil's in the details. Like when you think about a particular hate, like why is this bad for me, you know? Yeah, I think we're gonna get into that today. Okay, like when we do the process of tshuva. Okay, let's actually skip. Okay, we did this. Okay, let's do the definition of tshuva now. Okay, who wants to read? We did not read this. Yeah, go ahead, Ayala.
Mahi Teshuvah and what? Mahi HaTeshuvah. What is the Teshuvah?
Yeah.
It is that he leaves the sinning of his sin.
Yeah, so the chote is the person. So the sinner abandons his sin.
Vayasirenu mimachshavato, and he removes himself from his thoughts.
Yeah, I think Yisirin Nu is here. He removes the hate from his thoughts. Okay, and I'm translating as plans. Many times machshava means thought, but in a technical sense, if you're differentiating between different kinds of thoughts, machshava means practical thoughts. So I'm translating as plans.
Really, because we translate it as philosophy.
That's why I don't think that I personally don't think that machshava is a good name for that course. I think that yeah, hashkafa is a better term because hashkafa means outlook. The problem is that people use hashkafa in a much more narrow sense to mean like, is your hashkafa yeshivish or is it haredi? You know, that's not really what hashkafa means. It means like your whole worldview. Anyone know the fancy English word for worldview? Here's your word of the day. Starts with a W, but it's German. Have you heard of Weltanschauung? Weltanschauung. Okay, when you see it in writing for the first time, you're gonna feel all fancy and smart because it's one of those like words that only pretentious people actually use in conversation. Weltanschauung means your worldview.
We write that down.
Yeah, WELTAN. I think it's SCHAUNG.
I feel like we're in a spelling bee.
Let me make sure I got it right. I have responsibilities as English teacher. Weltan. Okay, so it's let me say it again. Okay, WELTAN, S-C-H-A-U-U-N-G. You've got that double
You
U.
got 2 letters wrong.
Yeah. Weltanschauung, a particular philosophy or view of life, the worldview of an individual or group. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be the more proper name for Machshava. Okay, so remove it from his plans.
And you like finish in your heart.
Yeah.
And he finished in his heart that he won't do it anymore.
Yeah, and I translate it here as resolve, like Gemar Din in Sanhedrin. Gemar Din is like the verdict or like the deciding of the law of the judgment. So like he has to like decide in his heart to not do it again.
Namar Yazov Rasha Darko Ish Aven Machshavato. Like it says that a wicked person will leave his way and a sinner will leave his plans.
Yeah, good. Yeah, a man of iniquity, a man of sin will leave his plans. Okay, will abandon his plans. Okay, so this is the first part. But we're gonna finish the halacha, list the steps, and then we're gonna go and examine each step and make sure we understand it. Okay, so right now we're just reading it. Okay, Emily, Mari. Onward is in the same halacha in the book.
Okay. And
Shorashim Nachem.
regret.
Regret.
Oh,
Say again.
Comfort, regret.
And change his mind. Okay, good.
To change one's mind on their passing.
So this one actually is regret. So he has to regret transgressing, regret that he transgressed.
Mind says, yeah, Hare should be not Hare have
Yeah, this is a tough puzzle. So Achare Shuvi Nichamti, after I returned, I regretted. Loud buzzing phone. No, after I returned, I regretted my sin. Yeah.
I knew.
And yeah, so this is after I became aware of my sin. Safati Ayrech. I slapped my thigh in anguish, which I guess back then, when you think of slapping your thigh, what do you think of? Yeah, laughing. Okay, I'm picturing here like little kids when they I guess they don't do this, but they like throw a tantrum and like pound their I think that's the kind of slapping of the thigh. Yeah. Yeah, Ya'id comes from the word aid. Yeah. Yodea Talumos, the one who knows hidden things. So the one who I had to flip it here for the English, and the one who knows hidden things will testify about him. Ya'id alav will testify about him.
And you won't go back to doing this
Yeah. Okay, good. Exactly. They will never go back to the sin. This one is actually Elohinu. It's we don't usually see that. Yeah, this is another weird pasuk.
It says, don't say.
Lo nomar.
Oh, don't say that.
We will no longer say.
We will no longer say the master
Elohinu,
God.
our gods, to the work of our hands. This is, let me tell you the context, that would make it easier. This is Klal Yisrael doing tshuva for Avodah Zarah. So they're saying we will no longer say our gods about the work of our hands, about the things that we made. And then this is a weird thing. What's a yasom?
Widow. No, Almanaz, widow. Orphan.
Yeah, orphan. Yeah, yeah. Okay, for it is with you that an orphan finds mercy.
וצריך להדפסו בשפתיו ולומר אני know
Inyanot.
עניינו אלו שגמר בליבנו
Libo.
and you need to make it different.
So this is the verb for vidui, which we talked about briefly yesterday. Yeah, admit, and we'll use confess for now, even though confess is not the best word because, yeah, good. Yeah, you got it.
And say,
Inyan is a hard word to translate.
matters.
Yeah, matters is good.
Okay, these matters.
Yeah.
I said in my heart.
That he resolved in his heart. Okay. So he, and then really quickly, I wanted to read you. He said this earlier. We'll list the steps in a second. Earlier in chapter 1, I'm just trying to find where it is here. He says what the formula for vidui is. It's like 6 lines down. Here's the formula for vidui, and I'll just read it really quickly so we can start discussing. Kesa misvade, how do you confess? Omer Ana Hashem. You say, anyone know what Ana is? Please Hashem, right? So it's hard to translate. Like, I beg you Hashem, please Hashem. Chatasi, avisi, pashati, lavnecha. These are all 3 different terms for sinning, but they each have connotations. Chatasi is what kind of sin? More accurate than accidental? Unintentional, right? What's the difference between accidental and unintentional?
Accidental is that you.
You did this in Hilchos Shabbos.
Unintentional is that you know better, but you just had a moment where you didn't.
Yeah, you had a moment where you forgot, or a moment where you didn't know what the.
Accidental is you didn't really. It happened to you.
Yeah, accidental is it happened to you beyond your control in some way, or like it was not a voluntary action. Unintentional is voluntary, but you just temporarily, you either didn't know the halakha, or you forgot the halakha. For example, the example in Shabbos is if you trip and accidentally turn on a light, that's accidental. But if you forget that it's Shabbos and you turn on the light, then that's unintentional. Avisi, that's on purpose, right? Purposeful, intentional, and then pesha is the worst. Yeah, rebellious, spiteful, right? So you say all 3 of them, okay? Even though you only did one type of sin. Vasisi kach v'kach. I did such and such. So this is where you specify the particular sin that you did. So like I turn on the light on Shabbos, I eat non-kosher food. V'hari nichamti, and I regret uboshti b'masai. I'm embarrassed by my actions. Ula olam eini chozer ladavar zeh. I will never go back to this thing. Yeah. Zehu ikaro shel vidui. This is the ikar, the primary, the important main part of the vidui. V'chol hamarbe lihizvados. The more a person increases his confession, ulaharich bin zeh, and elaborates on this, harizeh meshubach, the more praiseworthy. Yes, say exactly the same formulation, right? Is the more you do it, the better. Yeah. Okay, so summarize now. Okay, Rambam steps of Tשוba. First step he doesn't actually list, but I feel like it's important to list, especially because of pointing and calling. So I call this step 0. Recognize the chait. Okay, meaning identify it and and admit it to yourself, right? That you're doing it. That's like the prerequisite. Okay. And what was his first actual step that he listed? Before harata. You can look back at the Rambam if you want.
Stop doing it.
Stop doing it, right? Stop doing the chait. Next.
Vidui?
No, vidui is the last step. Remove it from your plans. So it's a separate step, right? Okay, so you stop doing it, remove it from your plans, which, what would that mean, remove it from your plans?
Yeah, like remove the habit.
Okay, you could interpret it that way, but
kind of make yourself not want to do it, not make something that you want.
Closer, right? Because Emily, I think, is going a little bit further than this step. I think that's like a later step. So the way I think of it is like this: is you guys we all have activities that we do and activities we don't do. So let's say like for some of us, like listening to music is like in our list of activities that we do. Cooking is in the list of things that we do. Murdering is not in the list of things we do. It's in like the other category. Yeah, I shouldn't make assumptions here. I gotta go now, guys. So what this means, I think, is shift this from something that is in like activities I do to something that is not in activities I do. This is not yet committing to not doing it again. That's the next step, right? The next step is resolving in your heart not to do it again. And this is just our introduction. We're gonna have to like think about the subtle differences between these things right now. Right now, this is just an overview. Okay.
Yeah, how is remove my
I already feel like it's
same thing as resolving it?
Yes, right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, let's just get them all out on paper first. Then next step.
Wait, that was not 4?
No, that was not.
I'm
Well,
1, 2, 3, 4.
yeah.
Say you feel bad.
Then you regret, right? Not just saying you feel bad, but actually regretting what you did. Okay. Then this next one, I think, is the toughest. Okay. What's the next step? That's the last step. That's this step. That's step 1. Ya'id alav yodea talumos shelo yashuv l'zeh le'olam, right? God testifies about you that you won't do it again. Now, what does that imply, just on a surface level?
Like, you can say whatever you want,
Yeah.
but God's the one who can tell you.
Exactly. So in other words, so what's the difference between when you're at when you have done step 3 versus when you've done step 5?
One is kind of just between you and yourself, and then once you get to step 5, it's between you and God.
Yeah. So in other words, step 3 is when you just make the commitment to not do it again. But what would you need to do in order for step 5 to happen? Right. Or, well, you don't know what's going to happen in the future, right? So practically speaking, what are you going to, I mean, I think you're right, but what do you have to do? What do you have to do practically to get from step 3 to step 5?
Make it something you're doing for God and tell God.
Not necessarily, right? Because God can testify about stuff even though you're not testifying to him.
Honestly, hope not to do it.
So I think this is what you were saying earlier, Emily. You have to, I think, take steps to change yourself into a person that doesn't have this habit or that doesn't do it again. You know, that doesn't do it. Now, you can't predict the future, but what you can do is you can say, based on the changes I've made, the me who I am right now is not someone who's going to do this again, right? You can't do the future though. So I mean, you can't know the future. So again, 3 is just a commitment, but 5 is actually changing yourself. And then 6, the last one is vidui, is you verbally express everything that you went through in the form of the vidui, using the formulation that the Rambam said before. Yes. So this according to the Rambam, vidui is the very last step, and it's when you basically declare before Hashem the processes that you've gone through. And this is where Chazal say, if you do vidui but you didn't do tshuva, then it's like you went in the mikveh holding a sheretz in your hand, which is like a source of the halakhic impurity. So it's not going to actually help you. Now, one of the big questions, which we'll have to discuss probably next week, is on Yom Kippur, we've confessed a lot of stuff that we haven't done tshuva on, you know, which doesn't fit this, but just simple answer so far. This is talking about personal tshuva. The vidui of Yom Kippur is different, and there is we do accomplish stuff by confessing stuff, even though we're not doing tshuva yet. Okay.
What I feel like is hard about Rambam
Yeah.
specific steps to tshuva is that in order to do all of them, I feel like you have to start planning this months ahead.
Yes, yeah, and that's why I think the advice people give is good, which is on Seres Mei Tshuva, focus on 1 or 2 small things.
Right.
And
Only 10 days.
Yeah, it's only 10 days. You can't make these tremendous changes in your entire life like in 10 days, you know? Yeah. Okay, so let's think about these steps, think about it over Rosh Hashanah, over the weekend, and then we'll try to analyze them more in depth next time. Next Jewish ethics, okay? Yep. All right. Have a good day, and remember to try to implement point and call, and we'll report our successes or failures. Okay.
Right.
Oh no, next week. Oh wait,